This happened about 20 years ago, but I still think about it sometimes. When it happened all those years ago, I was just a kid in school and had just received a camera as a birthday gift, as I really liked taking pictures. One summer afternoon, I decided to go for a little walk in the mountains. I rode my bike for about an hour to get to a very faraway place. I brought some food with me, just a couple of rice balls and a kind of sausage. I can still remember that. As I rode up to the mountains, I saw many fields, and there were older people working in those fields. I felt like I could leave my bike anywhere without worrying that it might be stolen. I was really happy that I chose to come out here because it seemed so peaceful. I left my bike in a shady spot and started walking into the woods. I walked for a little bit, and then I saw a dog up ahead. He had a thick chain around its neck, but wasn't looking at me, so I whistled, and then the dog stopped and turned towards me. When he looked at me, I noticed that it looked a lot like my old dog. My old dog passed away a few years ago. It was a mixed breed. So I talked to him. "Hey buddy, what are you doing here with this big chain around your neck?" I took the chain off from his neck and I shared my lunch with him. He looked really hungry. So I thought that after we finished eating, he would go his way and I would go mine. But he kept coming with me. So I turned to the dog and said, "Hey there, I'm sorry, but I don't have any more food. It's all gone." The dog just looked at me. I couldn't help but smile and laugh. He sat down, panted, and wagged his tail happily. I gave him a friendly pat on the head and started to walk away, but once again the dog followed me. I thought to myself, you know what? Maybe this isn't a bad thing. It might be fun to have some company. "Are you coming along with me, boy?" I asked, and the dog's wagging tail told me that the answer was a definite yes. So, I headed into the mountains with him by my side. The mountains weren't very large. I figured the whole trip would take about 2 hours in total. I was going up the mountain, taking pictures of the plants and the beautiful views. As it was really nice. It was summertime, so the cicadas were making a lot of noise. Many bugs were buzzing and chirping around. The birds were singing in the trees too. I passed by 2 older men who were also hiking. I said hello, and one of them said something a bit strange. "Oh, you're with the dog, huh?" This happened when I was about 70% done with the hike. I had gone up this mountain many times before, so I knew the area pretty well. I really liked it there. When I was near the bottom of the mountain, I came across a dirt road that I hadn't seen before. After the dirt road, there was a rocky path that curved to the left. I couldn't see where it led without walking down it. I wondered, what's down there? I can't believe I haven't seen this place before. I walked closer to the gravel road from the dirt path. There was a rusty wire hanging between 2 white posts like a kind of barrier. I saw an old building back there. It looked like it had been left alone for a long time. I thought, wow, this could be a great place to take some pictures. So I tried to go under the rusty wire and onto the gravel path, but I stopped when I heard the dog barking loudly behind me. It surprised me, so I turned around to see what the dog was barking at. The dog was crouched down, and it looked like it was ready to protect itself. You know how dogs look when they bark aggressively? Yeah, like that. The expression on the dog's face was one I will always remember. It was a raw mix of fear and distress. Something had really scared him, and it was in a fight or flight mode. I want to be clear that he wasn't barking at me. I wasn't afraid that the dog would suddenly attack me or anything like that. He was barking at something behind me. It was focused on the road I was about to walk down. When I realized this, I felt a chill down my spine. I also noticed something strange. I couldn't hear the loud cicadas or any other sounds coming from that road. I stared down that road and I felt a cold breeze on my back. I thought, this isn't a place I should go. So I quickly returned to the familiar mountain paths, and the sounds of nature gradually got louder again. I looked around for my furry friend, but I couldn't find the dog anywhere. He had vanished. I searched for the dog as I descended the mountain. I wanted to say goodbye and maybe even thank the dog because I'm sure that without him, my curiosity might have led me to go past the rusty wire barrier. I wonder, what might have happened if I had done that? Did the dog rescue me from something? I believe the dog did save me from something. I searched the mountain area for about an hour and a half, looking for the dog, but I couldn't find him. I was tired, hungry, and ready to go home by then. So I said goodbye to the dog, even though I couldn't see him, and started my way back. I returned to that mountain area a few more times, but I never found that gravel path or the dog again. It was a strange but nice memory from that summer for me.
This story happened when I was in junior high school. During the summers, we used to have outdoor BBQs on the hills behind my parents' house. Our family has a big piece of land that we've owned for a long time. On this land, there's a small mountain surrounded by many hills. Sometimes my family and I would go camping on this land. On the day of this story, I invited 2 of my friends to camp with me. So there were 3 of us in total. My dad had prepared a special spot for us to camp. He cut down some trees and made seats out of them. He also leveled the ground a bit to make our campout more comfortable. Our camping spot was under the cool shade of the mountains, so even on hot summer days it felt nice and comfortable. My family used to have outdoor meals there about once a month, and it was really enjoyable. I had been asking my dad for a long time to let me have a campout with just my friends. At first, my dad was unsure about saying yes because we were still quite young, and our land was really big and had lots of different animals. There was some danger involved, which is probably why I was so excited about it. I really wanted to have a big bonfire like my dad does, but he wouldn't allow it. However, I did manage to convince him to let us use a small gas stove for a barbecue. I asked my friends to bring some tasty food for us to cook. It turned out to be a really wonderful night. When I think back, it felt like we were taking our first steps into being grown-ups. We sat under the beautiful starry sky, and it felt like we owned the whole place. As it got darker, we started winding down and chatting. My friends were saying things like, "Camping here is amazing. I wish we could do it all the time." I was so happy that they had a great night. We had a little LED lantern with us. It attracted quite a few bugs, but that was okay. There were a lot of bugs around, especially loud cicadas. We got into our tent, and after a while, I guess we all fell asleep. I woke up at one point and realized that my friends were not in the tent. It really surprised me, to be honest. My first thought was, where are they? Are they okay? I stuck my head out of the tent and called their names. I was really scared that something bad had happened to them. Then I heard some footsteps and one of my friends came out from behind a tree. He was zipping up his pants and told me I was just using the bathroom, and we both laughed. I asked about our other friend and he said, he's using the bathroom too, but for a number 2. I told him to make sure our campsite and us were far away from that. He chuckled and said, "Good idea," with a smile. So I was about to go back to my sleeping bag and get some sleep. But before I could lie down, I heard a scream. It was a scream that sounded like it was coming from a bit far away. I looked at my friend, the one who had gone to the bathroom, and we were both really scared. We hurried towards the sound of the scream, yelling our other friend's name. At first, there was no answer, but then we heard more screams, and after a few really scary seconds, we could hear some words. Our friend came running toward us, shouting that someone was trying to hurt him. He quickly hid behind a tree or some bushes and pointed behind him. He told us to hide and run, not to just stand there. But I was really confused. Was this some kind of joke? But before I could understand what was going on, I heard a loud, grown-up voice getting closer and closer. A man suddenly appeared in the open area where my dad used to set up our family BBQs. The dim moonlight showed how big he was, and he had an axe in his hand. I only saw him for a moment, but as soon as we realized he was a threat, we took off running. I've never run so fast in my life. I could hear the man chasing us, and it was absolutely terrifying. One thing that helped us was that we were junior high school kids who played sports, so we weren't slow. But let me tell you, we were way faster back then than we would be now. The man with the axe was shouting, but I couldn't understand a word he was saying. It was all just a bunch of scary sounds. When we couldn't hear the man's loud footsteps chasing us or his crazy shouting, we slowed down and eventually stopped. We hid behind some trees for a while, making sure he wasn't following us. Then we quietly went back to my family's home and burst in to tell my parents what had happened. My dad called the police really fast. I can't remember much about what happened after that because I was still young and really scared. But what I do know is that they never found the guy. The police and my parents thought it might have been some homeless person or a person who wasn't thinking clearly that we had the bad luck to run into. They believed it was a homeless person who had made a temporary home on our land and came after us for our food. The police and my dad found out that some food and a few things from our tent were missing. Because of this, we had to be more careful about people coming onto our land, and we didn't have family BBQs there for a while. This experience really frightened me, and I didn't feel comfortable spending time on that land anymore. Last summer, I went camping with 6 of my friends in the mountains. It was a really good time. We had a small campsite, and we did fun things like setting off fireworks and having a barbecue. It was just perfect. There's something nice about sitting around a big crackling campfire, right? By midnight, everyone was really tired. We thought it was time to go to sleep. We all got ready for bed. I'm not sure if I was the first to hear it, but I'm pretty sure we all heard it. We heard a strange sound coming from deep in the woods. It sounded like someone moaning or groaning. If I had to guess, I'd say it sounded like a middle-aged woman. Sometimes I wondered if it might be an animal making that sound, but it seemed so much like a person's voice. It made me sure it wasn't an animal. It was definitely a human sound. The voice had a certain sadness to it, and it sounded strange. It was creepy, because we were in a place where there weren't many other people around, and I hadn't seen any other campers nearby. I remembered when I was gathering firewood, I thought, wow, we're the only ones here. There were no houses or cabins nearby, and I didn't know who could be out here making this strange noise in the middle of the night. Anyway, the moaning and groaning voice only went on for about 10 minutes before it just stopped. In the morning, my friends and I talked about what we heard. Later, we met another group of people near the campsite, and we asked them if they heard anything strange last night. You know, like a spooky crying sound. They said yes, they heard it too. These folks were older than us and seemed like they've been camping a lot. When we talked to them, they said they come to this campsite often. We mentioned the loud crying and moaning we heard the night before, and they smiled at each other like they knew something. They told us the following. From now on, it's kind of like a disturbing story people talk about. You can decide how much you believe in these stories, but since you asked, I suppose you want to know. There used to be a place for kids' camps, summer camps. But that's a long time ago. The reason is because of something really bad that happened, a disappearance. Yep, it was during a summer camp for girls who were learning about trees and nature. They used to have a lot of camping trips around here. But that night something changed. It was like the ground turned bad or something. The teachers got really worried because one of the students went missing. They were getting more and more desperate as time went on. They did find her eventually, but this story doesn't have a happy ending. They did find her, but she was hanging from a tree branch. People said she had been bullied a lot. Well, if the teachers didn't notice she was missing for a few hours, I doubt they noticed the bullying either. The teacher who found her, well, she quit not long after that. She couldn't handle the guilt or the shock. When they were looking for the missing student, she was the one who shouted the student's name the most. She was the one who couldn't bear the shock of feeling like she let the student down. Sadly, she chose the same path as her student did. She's not with us anymore. So, we all think that the moaning and groaning sound some people hear isn't the student's voice. It's the voice of the teacher who feels so guilty, still searching for her student. It's like she's stuck here on Earth because of all that guilt. Well, we all got really scared hearing that story. It was a story that made us feel a lot. I did think, though, in my not-so-hopeful way, if it was a way to scare away noisy young guys like us who had fireworks, so we wouldn't come back to the quiet campsite again. But that moaning sound was so real and really eerie. That's how summer can be, right? It's a special time, but as you can guess, we didn't go back there again.